Hi everyone, my name is Beverly Mitchell and I work for Science Metrics in Montreal. In this presentation, I'll be discussing recent work by my colleagues David Campbell, Etienne Vignola-Gagné and Enrique Pinheiro. This work examines the link between cross-disciplinary research and the odds of research findings being taken up in the policy-relevant literature. I'll begin by presenting the context and key findings of our study, then I'll discuss some of the more technical details of the methodology. The context for our study is that globally, cross-disciplinary research is becoming more prevalent. This has been shown by some prior research, including studies whose references are shown here. Our own data on the disciplinary diversity of references used in peer-reviewed publications also support these prior results. This situation is at least partly the result of increased support for this mode of research. This support is seen as having the potential to fuel revolutionary research to address increasingly complex challenges, such as those related to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. With the increasing emphasis funding organisations place on the longer-term socio-economic impacts of research, an increasing number of funding programs promote cross-disciplinary research, assuming it will fuel such policy-related returns. However, the assumption linking cross-disciplinary research and societal outcomes is supported by limited evidence concerning the ability of the first to bring about the second. In this project, we tested this assumption by modelling the relationship between cross-disciplinary research and the uptake of research publications in the policy-relevant literature. Before I present the main results of our study, I should explain that we used two definitions of cross-disciplinarity here. The first, multidisciplinarity, captures a collaborative dimension, with experts from multiple fields working together. We measured this with an indicator of the disciplinary diversity of authors, or DDA. In contrast, the second definition, interdisciplinarity, captures the intellectual integration of findings from multiple fields within a publication, but could, in principle, be performed by a single author. We measured this with an indicator of the disciplinary diversity of cited references, or DDR. To measure citations from the policy-relevant literature to peer-reviewed publications, we used the new Overton database, a novel altmetrics tool that aims to help improve the capture of policy-oriented outcomes of research. The Overton database has a coverage bias in favour of the United Kingdom. So to test for the effect of this, we took a set of papers supported by the European Commission framework programs and divided it into three subsets. Our model was first estimated for a subset of supported papers with at least one UK-based author to avoid introducing noise in the analysis. Results for this case are at the far left of the table. We subsequently estimated the model using all framework program supported papers, results at the centre of the table, and non-UK framework program supported papers, results at the far right of the table. Results were mostly consistent across subsets, indicating that Overton can be used to study such relationships in non-UK settings, at least for Europe. However, the share of uptake is likely underestimated in non-UK settings, so we'll focus on the results for the United Kingdom. If we look at our key dimension of interest, the results show that a one standard deviation increase in the disciplinary diversity of contributing authors, DDA, results in a 1.2 percentage point increase in the probability of being cited in policy documents, moving from the 10% baseline to 11.2%. However, the disciplinary diversity of a paper's cited references, DDR, didn't make a distinct contribution to policy uptake once the author's disciplinary diversity had been accounted for. From our findings, uptake in policy-relevant literature is positively associated with DDA in publications. I'll move on now to some of the specifics of using Overton's policy-relevant citations. Among similar databases, Overton currently has the broadest coverage of policy-relevant literature, and a preliminary characterization of its content suggests it's appropriate for our use case. For instance, out of 50 randomly selected citations checked for validity, 6 citations, or 12%, were made by documents that were academic or peer-reviewed publications rather than policy-relevant documents. In the remaining cases, the qualitative checks we performed revealed that the recorded citations captured research outcomes used in the earlier steps of the evidence-based policy-making process, rather than in the later stages of outright policy formulation and implementation. Publications with at least one UK-based author were cited at least once at a proportion of almost 9%, while this figure was 6% overall in all framework program publications. This observation indicates that publications with a policy-relevant citation are common enough to make their measurement worthwhile in program evaluations. Almost half the citations in policy-relevant documents had been recorded within 3 years of the peer-reviewed article's publication year. This means that the approach can be deployed within workable timeframes for many program evaluation contexts. Many other factors positively contributed to the uptake of research findings in policy-relevant documents. In particular, the number of countries represented in the research team, the document type, whereby reviews are more likely to inform policy than original research articles, and the prestige of the journal in which a paper was published, as measured here by the normalized CITE score. The results also showed that uptake in the scientific community, another outcome used as an independent, is positively and highly associated with uptake in policy-relevant documents. The citation indicators were included in the models to control for a possible indirect link between cross-disciplinarity and citation in policy-relevant documents through a higher impact within the scientific community. The highly significant relationship between scientific citations and citations in policy-relevant documents suggests that policymakers or science advisors in NGOs or intergovernmental organizations may rely on traditional markers of excellence when seeking out scientific evidence to support their activities. Or it may be that work with a higher relevance for policy may also tend to be more highly cited within the scientific community. Another relevant hypothesis might be one of reverse causality. In many cases, citations in policy-relevant documents could have preceded and facilitated scientific citation, with the former possibly acting as useful reviews of the state of the art, even for academic scientists or scholars. The validity and robustness of Overton records and the robustness of the link between DDA and policy-relevant citations in a large population suggest that policy instruments that are effectively proven to increase DDA or multidisciplinarity as measured by the disciplinary diversity of groups of researchers should increase uptake in policy-relevant documents. Of course, not all projects funded by such instruments and featuring high DDA will be associated with policy-relevant uptake, but in the aggregate of all projects funded by such instruments, uptake in policy-relevant documents should be more likely. This isn't to say that evaluation of the societal outcomes of these instruments is no longer warranted, though. For the remainder of this presentation, I'll focus in more detail on the methods used to obtain these findings. Many programs specifically supporting cross-disciplinary research produce too few publications to confidently discard confounding factors in testing the effect of this funding mechanism using quantitative models. Accordingly, we tested the causal link between the cross-disciplinarity of scientific publications and their uptake in policy-relevant documents in a general way, using a large dataset of 126,000 publications funded through the European Commission's 7th Framework Programme and Horizon 2020 programme. These publications and some of their characteristics, such as their corresponding projects, calls, and specific programs, were obtained from Cordis, a database of framework program-supported projects and their outputs. They were then linked to Scopus using a fuzzy matching algorithm to define additional control variables, as well as to measure their level of cross-disciplinarity. These publications were then searched for using their DOIs in Overton, a new database indexing close to 3 million policy-relevant documents. This way, we were able to uncover which publications were cited in policy-relevant documents, our proxy for the uptake of research and decision-making. Because shares of cited papers remain low, policy-relevant uptake was defined as a binary outcome in our statistical models. Accordingly, shares of papers cited in policy-relevant documents were estimated using conditional logistic regression, making it possible to control for project fixed effects, that is, the unobserved characteristics of different projects that could change the odds of publications being cited in policy documents. Our models included a wide range of other predictors to control for confounding factors. They included the prestige of a publication's journal, its scientific impact, the document type, the number of authors and countries, the proportion of female authors, and the average number of papers per author. And that wraps things up. This has been an International Centre for the Study of Research Perspectives video. Learn more about the ICSR at icsr.net. We'd also like to acknowledge support in producing the findings presented here via a European Commission Directorate General for Research and Innovation contract research project. Please don't hesitate to send us your questions by email to info@sciencemetrics.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.